Hi, I'm Veronica and welcome to my channel. Today is the second episode in a mini series where I'm going to show you how you can work with the collapse posture with rounded shoulders and all the things that this posture is causing. So that involves also working with other parts of the body, as doing anything in isolation usually doesn't make that much sense. I said a little bit more about the inefficient ways of working with rounded shoulders in the first episode, so you can check it out here. If you haven't done it yet, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification button so that you don't miss any new episode. And today we'll carry on with the somatic practices for the rounded shoulders to release the tension from the front of the body, but will also include some of the movements that will make your body move as a whole, which is very important. You don't need any props, you can do everything lying on the ground. So let's lie down on the ground. First, you can give yourself some time to move around, to do anything that your body might need so that you can land more comfortably on the ground. And you're going to lie on the ground with the knees bent and feet on the mat in something that is sometimes called a constructive rest. So once you find that place, somewhere where you feel you have all the natural curves in your spine, where you don't feel any tension around the pelvis or groin, that's where you want to land with the arms anywhere along your body, and maybe notice. Give yourself time to feel where is the front of the shoulders, how your right and left shoulder blade rest on the ground, how far away your lower back and your neck is from the ground, where is your chin, what can you see if you look up at the ceiling. All these things, as later we can have a little look at it again. Okay. And I'll give you a version of a cactus windshield wiper practice. So here the important thing to keep in mind is that your upper arms will be perpendicular to your body. So not too close, not too far away, perpendicular. And there is a right angle, 90 degrees in the elbow. So the starting point is with your wrist relaxed, with your fingers relaxed, and this kind of floaty feeling in the arms. But keeping in mind that all the time you're going to have that 90 degrees angle, arm to the body and lower arm to upper arm. All right. So to begin with, let's make a little test. And it's important that you move within your natural range of motion. So you're not going to try to reach anywhere by force. You only go as far as your body wants to go comfortably. So the first movement is moving your forearms in such a way that your fingers will be pointing behind you. You're not trying to reach with your fingers behind you. The wrists are relaxed. You're not trying to pull or push your forearms to the ground. You just notice where they land naturally. And it might happen that they are very far away from the ground. It might happen that some part of your hands are touching the ground. And it's very possible that one arm is much closer to the ground than the other. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You're not fixing anything. It will change with time, even after a couple of repetitions of what we're going to do today. So for now, you're just checking, you're curious how it is today. And then you can return with the forearms to that vertical position. And let's check how it goes in opposite direction. So again, you're keeping that 90 degrees angle, and keeping the 90 degrees angle, you let your forearms drop so that your fingers point towards your feet. And again, you're not trying to desperately reach to the ground. You let your forearms drop wherever they comfortably drop for now. You might feel that your fingers touch the ground. They might be far away from the ground. It might be different on the right and left side. Whatever is there to notice, notice it. Don't push anything. All right. And we're going to go between those two positions a couple of times. If you want, you can add a breath to that. And you might choose, actually, you can choose where really you want to take an inhalation. You might feel like inhaling when your forearms go behind you, and exhale when you return to the center, and then inhale again when the forearms go down, and exhale, you return to the center. Maybe you prefer to inhale when the arms over the head, and exhale when the arms go towards the feet. So I would say it doesn't really matter what kind of rhythm or breathing pattern you choose. Go for something that feels most comfortable and natural for you, but make sure that that breath flows in a steady way. That you don't forget about the breathing, that you don't hold the breath. You might notice that a particular movement is naturally making you more inclined to take an inhale or exhale. And it's really useful to work it out for yourself. So keep going, but remembering about that 90 degrees angle. All right, and after a couple of these, it's gonna start getting a little bit more confusing for your brain, as one arm will be doing something opposite than the other. So it means that if one forearm reaches over the head, the other forearm reaches down towards your feet, and the other way around. So it might take a while to make it happen. And coordinating this kind of new movements does take a while for the brain to kick in sometimes. And you want to find smoothness in that movement, make it flow as freely and easily as possible in an even, smooth, fluid way. And once you get really accustomed to that and it's gonna feel quite comfortable for you, you might start noticing that if you don't hold your head rigidly, it sort of naturally wants to roll. And again, rather than me telling you where to roll your head, you observe where your head rolls naturally, what it wants to do. If you let it happen, if you switch off all these patterns of rigid holding that normally take place in your body, and your head will naturally roll either towards the arm that goes over the head or the arm that goes towards your feet. Whichever it is, stay with what feels natural for you for now. And let your head roll where it wants to roll. But again, those movements are really coordinated. It's a nice simultaneous movement. Usually feels quite soothing. Do not overthink it, just the opposite. Switch off the rational brain and let your body do whatever it feels like doing. All right. And again, after a couple of days, you're gonna reverse it. So this time, yes, you will have to use some effort, as it's going to feel unnatural and weird, because your head will be turning towards that unnatural or non-habitual way, towards that other way than it feels natural. And we're doing it purposefully, breaking the patterns, breaking the habits. That's what's really effective in releasing the tension from the body. So you can keep going like this. Again, trying to find the smoothness and coordination in these movements. And then come back to that starting position. Check again if you haven't changed anything in the 90 degree, if it's still 90 degree of the upper arm towards the torso and 90 degree at the elbow. You want to keep it this way. And let's recheck how is it now if you wanted to rest your forearms behind you, again, without reaching, without pushing or pulling. It's very possible that the arms already go a little bit farther, or that a movement is more accessible and more comfortable. And the same of the movement in opposite direction, with the forearms reaching towards the feet, with fingers pointing towards the feet. How does that feel now? Any new sensations there? All right. And this time you can move your arms out to the side. And for a moment, you're going to rotate the whole arm. Again, not starting from the elbow and doing only the rotation in the forearm, as that is not going to help you for your shoulders, but rotating the whole arm, starting from the shoulder, including the shoulder. So when the arms rotate inward, it will make the tops of the shoulder lift. When they rotate outward, it will make the to make the shoulder blades to press into the ground a little bit more. We've done this movement already last time, so maybe it feels a bit more familiar. And then let's add to that. So if your palms are facing up and the arms are resting on the ground, you're gonna slide the arms along the floor as you bend the elbows to 90 degrees. So you're not lifting anything. You're sliding the arms along the floor to get to that shape. And if they're above the ground, it doesn't matter. Let them be above the ground. But the elbows stay glued to the ground at that in that relation of 90 degrees to the torso. And then you can return. Maybe repeat that a couple of times so that it feels familiar and easy. Okay, and then if you wanted to do the same movement but with the fingers pointing down, you have to rotate your arms, starting from the shoulders. Rotate the arms and point the palms down. Only then you can bend the elbows to 90 degrees with fingers pointing towards the feet. So you can try that a couple of times. Palms facing down, elbows stay where they are, bend the elbows to 90 degrees, and then return. Repeat it enough times so that it feels familiar to your body, so that you don't really have to think too much about this movement. Once you've got that, you could go between the two. rotating the arms so that the palms point upwards, and bend the elbows, fingers point behind the head. And then rotate the arms so that the palms point downwards, bend the elbows, fingers point towards the feet. Keep going between the two, remembering you have to make this full rotation in the shoulders when the arms are straight for these two movements to be possible. And it can take some time. You can slow down if that feels quite challenging to coordinate. You might want to stay with this movement. It's already quite complex. If you want to take it one step further, you could create alternate movements. So when one forearm is pointing behind you, the other one is pointing down towards the feet, but you're doing all the time this kind of sliding movement of the forearms on the ground that requires that little moment of rotation of the arms around their own axis, so that when the one arm is pointing behind the head, that palm is turned up, and when that arm is pointing towards the feet, that's when the palm is pointing down. And at no point at all your elbows lift off the ground, and there's all the time that 90-degree in the angle of the upper arm towards your torso. That doesn't change. And you might have noticed already that my head started naturally turning towards whichever arm it feels easy. So you can allow that to happen. If it's too many things to do at the same time and it creates tension in other parts of the body or kind of anxiety, then let go of it. It doesn't matter where is your head. Focus on one movement in this case. Lovely. And again, you can come back to that position with the forearms pointing towards the ceiling. One more time, you could go behind and forward. Maybe there's again some difference between these two shapes. You can also let your arms rest wherever they want to rest, and maybe there's also some difference in where your tops of the shoulders are, how your shoulder blades are resting on the ground. Is there any new sensation there? And to end that, I want to add the lower portion of the body as well, because they like to speak to each other. So for the moment, you can forget about the arms, give them a little bit of rest. So move them out to the sides in a T shape. And then allow your knees to drop to one side. And then slowly return to the center. And allow your knees to drop towards the other side. And then slowly return to the center. You can do that a couple of times. And as you do that, again, you might notice that your head naturally wants to join in. It wants to move. It wants to respond to this movement of the pelvis. So again, you might feel that your head turns somewhere on its own. It's not you moving your head. Your head rolls as a response to the movement that happens in the pelvis. So you allow this movement to happen. You do not make that movement. And whichever way it wants to turn, let it turn this way now. And again, you could stay with these two coordinated movements, making them as smooth, as fluid as possible, this typical windshield wiper movement for a while until it starts feeling really familiar, that you don't really need to put too much of your mental effort to create that movement. It happens. It has its own rhythm. And after a couple of these, you can add your cactus arms to that. So if you have your arms bent, again 90 degrees in the elbows and the forearms pointing towards the ceiling. Now if your knees drop to the left, your right arm goes over the head. And you can let your head turn wherever it wants to turn naturally. So this is one position, then everything comes back to the center, both the legs, the head, the arms. And then if your knees drop to the right, your left arm moves over the head, the other one does the opposite movement. And everything comes back to the center. So basically, the arm goes over the head. Is that arm on the other side than the dropping knees. Usually the head follows the arm that goes over the head. If something opposite happens to you, let your head does whatever it wants to do naturally. Do not force it for now. And again, if you feel that it's too many elements to juggle at a time and it makes you feel anxious, uncomfortable, irritable, or tense in your body, choose the element you want to stay with, whether it's the legs or the arms. With time, it's going to feel much more natural, much more fluid and smooth. Okay, and then everything comes back to the center. One more time, arms overhead, forearms towards the towards the feet. Maybe something changed in the sensations and how it feels for you. And then let your arms rest somewhere along the sides of the body, and you might give yourself another little test. Where is your lower back in relation to the ground? How your right and shoulder blade rests on the ground? Where is that top of the shoulder in space as compared to when you started? Which parts of the arms or hands touch the ground? Anything new. Give it time to notice. And you can also roll to the side and sit up in any comfortable seated position to observe how it feels for the shoulders, maybe for your entire torso, maybe for the head or neck when you're here. I hope you enjoyed this second episode of somatic work for the rounded shoulders. Don't forget to check the previous one, the part 1. And the next 2 sessions will be restorative, a different way of working with that tension and the fascial restrictions and with your nervous system. If you haven't done it yet, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell button so that you don't miss those future episodes. If you like this video, give it thumbs up. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to share them. And if you feel that you would like to work with me one-to-one, where I could really look at not just this repetitive motions, exercises as such, but getting to the bottom of where this pattern is coming from and perhaps creating a sense of safety in your body that is necessary for all these muscles and that to release and the chronic tension patterns to go away, then check out my VIP health plan. I linked it in the description below. See you next time.